BeTheTalk, episode 173, featuring Elchanan Poupko. Welcome to BeTheTalk. We go behind the talk 7 days a week for tips and techniques to help you change the world. I'm Nathan Eckel, and a talker myself. I'm interviewing others who change the world with their talk. You can too, even if you've never given a talk before. Let's get started with today's show. We are live with Rabbi Elchanan Poupko. Rabbi?
Hello.
Are you ready to talk?
I am ready to talk. It's really a pleasure to be on your show, Be The Talk, and thank you so much for hosting me here. The message of overcoming polarization is one that's very important to me, and this is really a great opportunity to speak about that and convey that message.
Rabbi Elchanan Poupko is a writer, teacher, speaker, and an 11th generation rabbi. He is the founding editor of the rabbinical journal, the YU Lamdan, and he has written for more than a dozen publications on topics varying from medical ethics to politics. He serves as faculty at Park East Day School, and he is the president of EITAN, the Israeli-American Jewish Network. Rabbi Poupko has worked with representatives of both parties on the national, state, and city level, and he is committed to bridging the divide, tearing our society apart. Rabbi Poupko is a member of the Rabbinical Council of America. Rabbi Elchanan Poupko, welcome to the talk.
Thank you so much for having me, Nathan. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I very much appreciate you having me on today.
You gave a talk at one of the most exclusive TEDx's, and you are actually the first TEDx Lincoln Square guest that I've had, so congratulations, and the honor is all mine. Your talk was called The Cost of Political Polarization. A couple of takeaways I took from your talk. Number one, we're driving a little less far to get to Grandma's house for Thanksgiving, and it's because we're getting in these horrible shouting arguments at the dinner table. Yeah. And so the very celebration of family and giving thanks is suffering because of our polarization. Please just take us behind the talk.
Absolutely. So a research that was done recently in Thanksgiving of 2016 used tracking data from cell phones and measured how often people go back home for Thanksgiving. It focused particularly on people who come from a district that doesn't share their own opinions. So if you come from a Republican district and are now a Democrat or vice versa, you are less likely to travel home for Thanksgiving. And I found that to be staggering because we're traveling home less, we're communicating less. In Florida, they ran a study that found that for every 1,000 political ads that run in a given area, people decrease the length of their Thanksgiving meal by 1.5 minutes. So with every X amount of political ads, our meals are getting shorter. And so that's
oh my word! So that's an outside metric, and it actually correlates. Every 1,000 ads you see in a district shortens Thanksgiving dinner by 90 seconds.
Correct. Absolutely. Yes. And so in places that are very contentious, people are decreasing their meals by an hour or more just because of this polarization. So it's something that should concern us as a nation.
Well, family begins at the dinner table, and that, I just thought you really rammed it home because we rightfully hear a lot of TED Talks and branded talks about, we shouldn't be so divided and we got to check our news and what's fake. All of these things are really good. What was unique and shocking and sad is, Turkey Day is under attack by these blasted political ads.
Yeah.
and that's my favorite holiday because it's the least commercialized. I mean, fortunately for you, most Jews do not celebrate, to my knowledge, Christmas for reason.
Right.
And that has become such a commercialized holiday to our kind of shame as a culture. And so we have Thanksgiving, which they tried commercializing Thanksgiving, but it's really more under attack from these political ads. You were the first person that brought that up. So how did you find that data? And you're living in Manhattan, so that's, it's kind of in our face everywhere that we go. So I'm just curious, how did you find that data? Where did you get it from? And are you as outraged and shocked as I am about it?
So yes, I am outraged, and I think that there's no one that can't relate to this, because we all see it in our lives. You know, you start judging your friends, your family. Are you like, you say, is this something I can share in this audience? People feel like they can't express their full views in front of others, and when they do, it becomes really messy sometimes. And the way I got sensitized to this is, well, we don't have Christmas dinner, but as an Orthodox Jew, we have every night a Friday night dinner. So you really need to figure out your together meals when you're forced to have one every week. And so my wife and I have actually this unique practice of inviting people we don't know to our Friday night dinners. And it was a really interesting exercise in trying to sort of navigate the different people that come to your table. Some people are on even what we would call the alt-right. Some people are on what we would call the alt-left. And they're there at the same table. And you start thinking to yourself, well, what is it that can bring these people together and help them have a good time? And so that got me thinking about this issue and about trying to find a way back from it. Because interestingly, we don't really disagree on so many things. A recent study found that we disagree more based on our sort of identity or the team we chose. It's a bit like sports, rather than the actual issue. And so we really need to learn how to just get together with each other, because the issues that are dividing us are not as big as the actual division.
Yeah, and in the middle of it all, Rabbi, we're basically, we pick a side, and we're in the middle of being completely exploited by the media companies, by, for clicks and views and watches and advertisements, and we're just being played basically by the powers that be.
Yes, absolutely. People find that divisive posts get higher ratings. Like you mentioned, the media likes the more inflammatory headlines because those are the ones that go really far. A lot has been said and written about the fact that we live in a culture of outrage. So everyone is looking for the next outrageous cause, whatever it may be, and it ends up costing us as a society, because obviously the way our society would work best is if we overlook our differences and focus on what brings us together.
I had the privilege of interviewing Marissa Piccolo earlier today, and her talk was all about her experience. She's a former campaign organizer studying abroad right now, and she was right there at Hillary Clinton headquarters for the election night surprise. Whether you voted for Trump, whether you voted for Clinton, whether you voted for neither, I think for everybody it was a giant surprise, and she was right in there. I had the privilege of interviewing her and kind of getting some of her thoughts, but I think it was her. I made a little kind of, it's not really a happy joke, it's kind of a sad joke, but I said, if things keep going the way they are, we can't call it civilization anymore. We'll just have to refer to our civilization as our polarization, because
exactly
it's not coming together. And that's part of the reasons I love to have people like you on Be the Talk with Talk Universe, so that we can just practice modeling something new and something different. One thing that I'll also say, I know I'm taking a little bit of your time up, I apologize. I want to let everybody know about, Tina Singleton over at TEDx Charleston, episode 08, our first week. We released this, and she has a piece called Transformation Table, where she has also, like Rabbi Poupko has also fought hate and intolerance and polarization through hospitality, through the the biblical cultural value of hospitality to bring people together. So back to you, back to your table on the Friday night, which is really a ceremony for you, but you've brought all kinds of people. You've welcomed them into your home. You've welcomed in, you've made it maybe as much about them as the ceremony, or maybe, let me know how you did that. Cause I know a little, I mean, Friday night is Shabbat, correct? And that's where things start slowing down and you want to start settling down and not doing too much work. How did you navigate your faith with your moral imperative to love your neighbor?
Thank you. That's a very good question. So it started with my wife and I wanting to host people, to bring people together. And I started posting on social media invitations, which is not a common thing. And so come Friday night, we really didn't know who would walk through the door. We've had some
you did a blind invite.
Well, an invite, you need to RSVP. So I sort of, vetted who's coming. I've never said no to someone.
Okay.
I just made sure that it's just a reasonable person. But we really hadn't met the people that were coming through our door before. We actually had some really interesting guests. We had a businessman from China who was visiting, not Jewish, but just wanted to see what a Friday night dinner would look like. We had students from California who were here for the weekend. They also just wanted to see what it's like. So we've had really a large mix of people. And when you're not vetting people based on their social affiliations or religion or anything, you end up with a mix of people that can be very different ideologically. And so you can have at the same table, it's one of the stories I mentioned is that we had in August of 2016, we had someone that was working on the Hillary Clinton campaign at the same time that we had several strong Trump supporters, and they're sitting at the same table. And they were shocked to see that they're with people who held such different opinions than their own. And it's just this look of, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I am seeing you. And yet, as the evening progresses, they become friends and they speak. And so that was a beautiful experience, showing that even though initially we look at each other very differently, when we get to see each other face to face, then even when we have very different political affiliations, we become friends.
So here's what I got from that talk universe. So Rabbi Poupko and his very brave bride decide to do something absolutely crazy because they're people of faith living out their tradition and what they believe. 11 generations of being around. I mean, I've got a really wonderful heritage that I'm also blessed and proud of and thankful for as well. But I mean, 11 generations. I mean, that teaches you to love and care for other people. So they invite people. They don't know who's coming. I guess they said, let us know if you're coming, but they don't even know the people they invited. Blind invite and Talk Universe. If you want to spice up your life a little bit, maybe you can try to do this and see what you get. Maybe I'll even bring you on a panel with Rabbi Poupko and Tina Singleton of Transformation Table. Maybe we'll do something fun that way.
Sure.
People at the table look at each other across the table, across the divide, then look at the Trump people looking at the other Trump person saying, oh, wow, they're not in our club. And the Clinton people, I guess it was only one, but, there wasn't only one because it's Manhattan. So there were a few, but not directly working for the campaign. They said, hey, these people over here, they're not in our club. But you know what? You had a bigger club. That's my point. So you and your wife, you opened up the table and you said, in not as many words, you said, hey, there's a bigger club. It's America. This was the original idea. You don't have to share our beliefs. Did you weigh, speaking of beliefs, which I'm straying back around to again, did you have any part of your tradition, or was it just kind of more humanitarian, or how did you navigate that? I'm just curious.
So when we have a Friday night dinner, we follow the Jewish custom and law of starting it off with a blessing over a cup of wine or grape juice. and then we make the blessing over the bread. But then that's it. There's no other religious component to it. So everyone is very patient and respectful in those first few minutes. And then we're on to a delicious meal. And that's when people start warming up to each other. We go around the table with introductions and icebreaker. And then people start opening up to each other. And it's not clear sometimes if there's going to be a discussion of politics or not. We try to steer clear of it, but it happens that it comes up, especially if someone works on a campaign and they're introducing themselves.
So what do you do?
Yeah.
Oh, I work for the other team.
Yeah. And it's just this look of like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, no one would do such a thing.
I'd like to think, and Talk Universe, you can just tell me I'm reading too much in, or I'm inserting my own personal, maybe beliefs or views or what I'd like to think about. I'd like to think praying over the bread, praying over the wine as a Jewish person and your belief, I would like to think that somehow, sanctified the conversation and just made people a whole lot more human and respectful. Has that ever, is that like a pet theory for you? What are your thoughts on that?
I've never thought of it that way. That's an interesting thing now that you're mentioning it. Yeah, it maybe does give things more of a formal and more, sort of a more spiritual element. That's definitely a possibility. I think also part of it is that people see that it's a real dinner. It's not, a lot has been said and written about the fact that we've gotten so polarized because of social media. Mm-hmm. And so people are okay with writing the nastiest things to someone that they don't know and don't see and won't see. But when you're actually seeing the person face to face, that's a whole different dimension. And then people are much more courteous and much more respectful.
For sure. And that's again, that echoes what I talked to Tina about back in episode 8. And I love the dimension. I love the faith dimension. I love the belief. Mm-hmm. It's really what we're talking about, if you will. It's you could just say multicultural, because this is most people in the United States are not, Orthodox Jews and do not come from that tradition. So, it's going to be different. It's going to put a different spin on things, and it's going to have, I would think, a humanizing, even without the supernatural blessing piece that I'm trying to read, in this. I think just the human piece and the multicultural piece is going to work. Any final word? Because we've taken a lot of time talking about this because it's great and it's fascinating, before we pivot over for a couple of Blitz Round questions, but anything that you'd like to say to wrap this piece up?
So I think it's been a positive experience getting to see people that are different. I think just getting to give this TED Talk was a terrific experience. I got to meet so many people that I wouldn't have necessarily met had I gone about my life, not leaving my usual circle of friends and students. And I think it's a powerful lesson how we can really overcome anything. It's just, you got to have that face-to-face communication. You need to have the respect, the protected dialogue of respecting people. There's something that I've been writing about and is very important to me, and that is what I call the American pledge. And we need an American pledge, and that pledge should be that every person should commit themselves to make sure that at least 20% of their friends don't agree with them. We need to make friends with people who don't agree with us and recognize that we won't agree with each other and that that's fine and we can still be friends. And if you're able to recognize that you will be friends with someone who completely disagrees with you, that's a great civil exercise that can help heal our society. So that's, I think, my if there's one message I can boil this all down to is making that pledge that we should all pledge to sort of reach out to people who don't agree with us and be friends with them.
We have been enjoying an especially deep conversation with Rabbi Elchanan Poupko. His talk is called The Cost of Political Polarization. And man, what a cost. In a moment, we are going to be right back with Rabbi Poupko for the Blitz Round. People ask, how could I start a 7-day-a-week podcast? It's because of what I've learned from my mentors. Some of the best mentors in history aren't around anymore. They've left hours of one-on-one mentoring behind in their books. Each month at Classics on Tap, I record a new chapter from a classic business book to help you make a difference. Download your first chapter at classicsontap.com. And we're back with the Blitz Round with Rabbi Elchanan Poupko. It is time for me to ask you just a couple of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of your recent TEDx Lincoln Square talk. Rabbi, are you ready?
Good. I'm all set.
All right. Were you selected to speak or did you apply?
I applied. I reached out to the organizer, Trisha Brook, who is an outstanding person. She made this a remarkable production, and she really worked with me throughout the process on honing things and developing them, and it's been a really terrific experience.
Would you describe yourself as a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
So naturally, I'm an improviser because I speak a lot and I'm a teacher, so I need to be ready to improvise. But in this particular case of the TED Talk, it is scripted and I had to be a memorizer. It took a lot of memorizing, and I thank my wife who took the time to listen.
What's a tip, technique, or tool that helped you?
I think that a tip that Trisha shared with me is from the world of opera. It's called Italian. So if you're an opera singer, you're singing in Italian, which isn't necessarily your first language. And so what they do is they'll take the script and read it really quickly to themselves. Not too loud, just read through it very quickly. And doing that a few times helps actors and people in opera memorize, and it helped me as well.
This is the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out?
Meaning something that I wanted to share? That's a tough question. I think as a rabbi, I always love starting with a joke and not being able to start with enough jokes.
The rabbinical joke is a no-no.
I started up. Yeah, so not enough jokes was a rough part for me.
All right. Well, we all have to pay the price in some way or another, right? We've been enjoying the Blitz Round with Rabbi Elchanan Poupko, and in just a moment, we're going to come right back for the final word of advice. Before we do that, I would be really remiss if I didn't tell you where you could go to actually watch this excellent TEDx Lincoln Square talk. It's called The Cost of Political Polarization. You can type that into YouTube, or you can go to our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com. We will have a link for it there. You just click on it, as well as you can also connect with Rabbi Poupko on his website, which is also RabbiPoupko.com. Poupko is spelled Poupko, RabbiPoupko.com. And we are going to be right back in just a moment with the final word of advice. Everyone wants to change the world, but not everyone knows the first step. Before you can change the world with your talk, it has to be selected. So grab the templates, timelines, and tools that I use to get my talk selected at BeTheTalk.com. And we're back with the final word of advice with Rabbi Elchanan Poupko.
Thank you. Hi. So final word of advice in terms of giving the talk, is that?
Whatever is the final word of advice.
Final word of advice. So this is a tough one. You know, in the Bible, there's the book of Proverbs, and it's I believe 30 chapters. But I'll try and narrow it to one. So I think I spoke once to someone who sat on a very large grants committee. And she would decide who would get these huge scholarships for major universities. And she told me what the number one cause for being disqualified for these grants is. And what would you think it is? The number one cause for people not getting these very large grants to prestigious universities. And she said the number one disqualifier is the person themselves, the person who didn't apply. So yes, some of the applicants get rejected, but the most people rejected are those who didn't even bother to apply. And I think that's a powerful lesson in life to everyone. Never sell yourself short, never be ashamed or embarrassed of pursuing an opportunity. Wayne Gretzky said, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And so take those shots and give life its most.
We want to see you up there for your Talk Universe. Rabbi Elchanan Poupko, thank you so much for coming on the talk today, sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Be The Talk. For tips and resources to help you change the world, go to BeTheTalk.com. See you tomorrow.